Hello, my beautiful baddies. Welcome back to yet another episode of Your Inner Baddies Speaking. This week's episode I am so excited to talk about. I feel like it's one that I could probably do like multiple episodes on because traveling is just something that I love to do. I feel like it speaks to me. I love to be around people who love to travel. I just love exploring new things, trying new things, and especially doing that in a new area. I feel as if travel is like a way to extend beyond yourself and get to know other cultures, and in turn it's like the more that you get to learn about another area or another group of people, you also get to learn about yourself. I just feel like it's so freeing in that sense, and it's such as weird as it is to say that traveling is like an educational experience, I feel like it is. You really do learn so much when you go and travel. And so I love talking about traveling. I love traveling itself. So this week's episode is one that really just gets me going. So this week's episode is all about take the trip. And the reason why I basically start out the topic with take the trip, because I encourage, and let me just slow it down here. I encourage every single person to get out of their comfort zone and travel somewhere. Whether that means take the trip because it's a group trip, and normally you're a little apprehensive about group trips, which I get because it's not as intimate. It doesn't mean that you always get to do what you personally want to do, but I swear the vibes are always amazing. And if you just let go a little bit, it's so much fun. Or take the trip of, if you've always been dreaming of a place to go, I'll get more into this, but the first place that I really felt like I was called, I suppose, is how I feel about it. The first place that I was called to go to was Paris a few years ago, and oh my god, that trip changed my life in a way. I will describe it better and we'll get back to that, but go to the place that you feel like has your name on it. If you keep dreaming of Hawaii, or if you keep dreaming of going to Japan, go. And obviously this episode, I say everything with a caveat. Obviously, if you don't have the financial means to go somewhere, either figure out a way to save to get there, or figure out a way where somebody work is paying for you, or the flights, tack it onto a work trip if you can, figure out creative ways, or figure out a way to save so that you can go on the trip that you've always been thinking about going on, or the trip that you get invited to go on, because it's always worth it. But obviously the caveat is if you are financially able to go. So all of what I'm saying is all based on the fact that take the trip if you can afford to go. Which sometimes, and I am very guilty of this, I feel like I am the type of person, I know a lot of people, I have really good friends who are very good at budgeting, especially when it comes to travel. I'm good at budgeting except for when it comes to travel, because in my mind it's my budget should be within reason, kind of unlimited, because I'm only going to be there once for the foreseeable future. I don't know when I'm going to be able to go back. I don't know when I'll be able to try out that food, or go to that concert, or go to that go and see that orchestra, or do this once in a lifetime experience. I don't know when I'm going to be back. So for me, I should probably be better about it, but I'm not always good when it comes to a budget. Hopefully some of you have seen the movie, but I always feel like this. I always think about, I think it's 22 Jump Street with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum, where Channing Tatum's character is like, oh, we got Kate Blanche with the budget. And it's like, no, we have like an unlimited budget, but that's carte blanche. That's not Kate Blanchett, which is an actress. So for some reason, whenever I'm thinking about like the fact that I just don't care to keep myself to a strict budget, I always think of that scene. So if you haven't seen it, very funny movie. If you have seen it, then you know what I'm talking about. Very funny scene. But I feel as if sometimes it's good to let loose a little, and I don't always mean like, you know, you should just like take your entire savings and blow it on one trip, because you're going to want to go on more trips. The way that when you return from a trip, you immediately want to have a trip planned. It's a real thing. I have it. And I currently have no personal trips in the books to look forward to right now. So after this, I clearly need to get on that. But, so all that to say, caveat being, if you can financially afford it, go. So if you feel called to go somewhere, or you feel like you've been missing out on something, or you feel like you've always wanted to explore a certain part of the world, or a certain type of cuisine, or a certain, I don't know, maybe you want to go do like become a pastry chef or something like that, or you just want to learn a new skill and you're like, you know what, I kind of want to go abroad and I want to go and take a cooking class, or like take a pastry class and figure out how to do it from like the OG area where that food originated. That is like a worthwhile experience in my opinion. And so why not go do that? I also feel as if like if you are someone, and I definitely have always seen the appeal, but I've always been kind of scared to do it, solo travel. If you feel like you can't find the right people to go with, or you don't have people who align with the budget that you want to go on the trip and like the way that you want to spend your time and your money, go by yourself. Or maybe all that aside, maybe you just feel called to go to this place by yourself. Maybe you aren't trying to plan this trip with friends or family or anyone. Maybe you really just do want to do that trip by yourself. Go do it. I dabbled a little bit in solo travel last year, which was like, I don't know, exhilarating. I definitely get the appeal. I would definitely want to do like a full solo trip. Maybe that will be on my books for this year, who knows? But like, take the fucking trip, because I will get into why I really feel that way after last year, but it's always worth your time. Now, this is if you're a traveler and you have the money, it's always worth your time. And even if you've been like scared to travel, I swear to God, you take that first trip, you take that first dive into it, thank me later, you'll want to go again, unless you have a terrible experience, which I cannot help with. If you run into like the worst hotel or something, that I can't help with. But hopefully that doesn't happen for you. So this past year, the reason why I'm so like behind Take the Trip is last year I was debating on taking a specific trip, and it's because I knew how many work trips I had and I knew how much personal travel I was going to have as well, and I felt like a little overwhelmed because for me, I haven't traveled as much as I did last year. As I have not traveled like that probably in any other part of my life. And a big thing for me is while I was engaged, married, and dating that person, I felt like I was losing out on so much travel. And travel for me is something that like, it reignites my spark every time I go. And it almost reignites it before I've even gone on the trip, because I'm excited about planning for it. I'm excited about like envisioning what it's gonna be like. I get excited about planning my outfits for it. Even though packing does stress me the fuck out, and anyone in my life can attest to that, I'm so much better today than I am before, but I used to, no joke, call my mom crying while I was packing. And this was supposed to be for like a fun trip, because I just want to take like my whole suitcase, and I'm a carry-on only person, so like I will stress myself to no end to get the most amount of clothes in the least amount of space so I can do a carry-on only. But that's me. If you're a carry-on only person, you understand. If you are a checked bag person, you will not understand why I'm always so anxious to pack, because you're like, just get a bigger suitcase. For some reason, I can't do it. I'm so scared of my luggage getting lost. Anyways, back to why it was so important for me to travel is like, I felt like during that time in my life, there was like a 5-year period where I really felt like I wasn't traveling. Obviously, COVID did have a factor in this. You couldn't really travel many places, if anywhere, at a certain time. So I get it, COVID did impact that, but that wasn't like the full stint. I felt like in that relationship, we did small trips. I felt like we were traveling a lot, but we weren't traveling to places that I wanted to. And it's not like the places we went to I didn't want to go to, but for me, Europe is a very big like deal to me. It's a destination, like I would go there once a quarter if I could afford to go and do that and just like blow my money there. Maybe I should move there. I should probably look into that. But like, that's a big place for me that I always want to go and explore more of. And in that relationship, it was always like yeah, we'll get there. But instead, what we ended up doing was a lot of domestic trips to places that we had already been before. And then we would go to Mexico quite a bit, to the point where like I think, unless it's like Cabo on the entire opposite side, I think I'm good on, which is ironic because when I tell you about my travels last year, I did go back to Mexico. But hey, we're turning a new leaf, we're creating new memories. But I felt like I was tapped out. I was just like, okay, I don't want to go there anymore. And I get the appeal of the all-inclusives, but for me, I don't feel as if I'm really getting much of the culture, because unless you venture outside of your resort, you really are just seeing the same people who are usually tourists. You're, enjoying the beach and the amenities and everything, but it's not like you're exploring like a downtown of a city, or you're not like talking with locals. Like, it's a very different experience to me, and I know a lot of people do it to relax because they're like, I just want to turn my brain off and know that all my meals, my drinks, like my room, everything, my activities, they're all included, and I get that. For me, I just have a bit of a different travel style, so I felt like at the end of that relationship, I felt as if I didn't really go anywhere that my heart like wanted to go. And so I felt as if I had basically not really gone anywhere that like reignited my spark. And it probably has something to do with as well that like those trips that I took didn't feel fantastic because of the person I was with. And I mean, I have stories from that, which I'll share on another podcast episode, but I always thought it was me on why I felt down during a lot of those things when I should be happy. I'm like, I'm in paradise, the sun is shining, and here I am crying. What the fuck? And it's not like if you're gonna be sad in Paris, because that allowed. But that wasn't that. I wasn't sad and then I'd go on a trip and I'd be sad and I'm like, oh, maybe this is a deeper problem. It's the person I was with. But so I felt like coming out of that time, I had missed out on like years of travel, and I felt like I needed to make up for it. And between the divorce and this past year, I did travel. However, I didn't travel as often. And I think that's due to a few factors, paying for divorce lawyers, which not cheap. Going through periods of unemployment where I was supposed to be in a marriage where it was encouraged that I should take extra time between jobs because he would cover me. But then we got divorced, so it was really just me covering me. Anyways, all of that to say, I just wasn't in a space where I could travel. And then obviously with starting a new job, you start from like scratch and you have to I was on a accrual system, so it's not like I could just take days right out the gate. And it's hard to take days when you first start a job anyways. All that to say, and all of that explanation to say that while I was going through my divorce, I started having dreams about going to Paris. I started to feel like pretty much every other week I would have some sort of sensation or memory or something that would spark me wanting to go to Paris. And I was like, okay, it's been on my mind for months now. This is clearly something I need to do. I'm being called to do it. I've got to figure out how to do it. And maybe I could have done a solo trip, but I did get lucky. I kept feeling oh, I can't do it because I don't have anybody to go with. And at the time, solo travel did scare me. I'm not gonna lie. Post-divorce, I think I really wanted somebody, especially when I was going to a place that's basically known for romance. I don't think I wanted to feel alone, which I know everyone will understand. But so I finally was chatting with a friend, and they were basically if we plan enough in advance, I can go. And that trip itself, going on it, knowing I was gonna go, planning for it, and then a beautiful thing happened while we were on the trip is I used to be, and this was the turning point. I was definitely more of a type A traveler before. I kind of had loosened up when I was in my marriage just because, or with my ex, just because they were a very go with the flow person. So I started to become more go with the flow. But this was my first trip, planning by myself, after that period of my life. So I kind of went back to a type A type vibe. And when we got there, first of all, it's when the stars just line up, it was the perfect hotel, the perfect location. The sun was shining in November in Paris. It wasn't super cold. It was everything was as magical as you would want it to be. Now, the life-changing sort of thing was two things. One, I had been to Paris before, and I kind of been I don't really know why I'm so drawn to go back to Paris. I've been there, and I love Paris, but I don't know, it's another city. This trip made me fall in love with Paris so much that I was I think Paris is my soul city. And I mean, I wear enough black, I literally wore this little zip up right now so I wouldn't be in all black. It's very hard for me not to be in all black. But so I was this is my soul city with fashion and just everything. And I just feel I fell in love with it in a way that it was I needed to be there. And then the other way that it kind of changed me is the fact that I used to be very type A, and this trip, my friend and I kept joking about it. It's every time we let go of the plans, except for dinner, I stick by this. Every trip that you do, book dinner reservations, because you never want to go the day and then go the whole day and then all of a sudden you're tired, you're hungry, and you do not have dinner reservations, and you find that it's very difficult to get to a good place, or even just finding a place in a city that you've never been to, or that, you know, you want to try something new and it's like, what restaurants do I go to? And the ones that you want to go to and that have really good reviews sometimes are booked up, and then you're like, well, son of a nutcracker, what do we do? And you don't want to be hangry making dinner decisions. So that's my one thing that, yes, I think no matter what trip, no matter what you're doing, plan dinner. But we were planning more than dinner, and it was like every time we shifted from the plan and just like sat at a cafe or decided to go shopping or just decided to take a walk in a random neighborhood, it was the best fucking thing. I don't even know how to fully describe the fact that it was so very clear that we needed to let go. And her and I, very like spiritual, like feeling how the universe wants us to go. And so when we started feeling that way on like day 2, it was very clear, all right, maybe we should just throw caution to the wind and do whatever the hell we feel like doing when we feel like doing it. And that opened up a whole new part of me, I feel like, where I felt like I could just let go of control. And especially with travel supposed to be something that's very fun to me, something that I'm very enthusiastic about and I love, it really taught me, if when I'm doing something that I love, I'm feeling like I have to be in control and uptight, maybe then in other parts of my life, I need to let go as well. And wouldn't you know it, I am way more of a go with the flow person than I ever was. And I really do believe that that trip to Paris was a turning point for me. It felt like, and there have been a couple trips in my life now that I feel like were like soul trips, like they were good for my soul, and that was one of them. So then after that, kind of like dormant just because, you know, new job situation, all of that, like kind of calmed down a little bit. And then this past year, I started strong with like an impromptu work trip to London, and I have family in London, and I was like, well, if I'm going to be there, I would like to have some time to explore. So I extended my trip so that I could stay the rest of the weekend and explore London, see my family. And that was the first time I dipped my toes into solo travel. I was scared to do it, didn't know if I should do it. I don't really like impromptu things. So the work trip coming, literally I left Sunday night and I got told Thursday that same week that I would be going. So very last minute throwing it together, getting the okay to stay the extra days because work was paying for the flight. So there was like no difference in cost. So it was perfect and it worked out. And I was scared to be on my own. And I definitely feel like now I know, especially when you're on your own, things take a lot longer than you expect. So maybe wind down to like the number of things I'd like to do a day. But every single thing I did, even though it was overcast, it was rainy, typical London weather, it was perfect. Like going to a restaurant I had never tried and sitting there and chatting with the bartenders, and everyone's so nice and they're coming up and having conversation. It didn't feel like I was dining alone. And then like going and doing some of my favorite things, it was just so refreshing, and it felt like everything I wanted to do and everything that I did just, it gave me the courage, it gave me like the feeling of independence of like, I fucking got this. And for anyone who's solo traveled, I feel like you know that. And travel, I think in itself, it really makes you feel so fucking confident to go somewhere, figure it all out yourself, get yourself around in a country that you've never either been to or you don't live in. And it's scary, it's intimidating. But when you do it, you're like, yeah, I can do that. If I can do that, I can do anything. Like that's the feeling it gives you. So take that solo trip, take that chance. Take a bet on yourself that you will enjoy your company, or find people. And I find this with solo travel, You always end up finding people to talk to have fun with, to do activities with. You will always find someone, so don't get scared that you'll be like alone the whole trip. It's okay, you'll find somebody. And then I had some trips planned with a friend, with work again, and then it got to the point where this was the first trip of the year where I felt like it was for a friend's birthday. It's actually the post today with the new episode drop. The photo is from this trip. I was debating just because I was like in a place where I was like, okay, I'm trying to be more financially responsible. I've definitely traveled a little bit more than I thought I was going to already this year. And like we're in April at this point, and I know I have trips ahead. So I'm like, maybe I should like cool it. But a friend of mine wanted to go to Tulum for her birthday. And it was a very stressful like time of the year, just with work, just with everything. And I felt like I'm trying to be smarter with my finances, like maybe I shouldn't go. It's a big group trip. I think I knew like 3-4 people going on it out of like 20 people. And I remember chatting with my therapist and I was like, I really want to go, but I feel like I'm supposed to be a responsible adult. And she was like, money always comes back. And you've been talking about how you've wanted to travel and how you feel like sometimes you want to travel, but there's not always like a group to go with. This is your opportunity. Like the universe is stepping to your door and saying, you wanted to travel, here you go. Here's an invitation. And it always feels good to be included on a trip, you know, and it's always fun to celebrate a friend's birthday. And so I was like, you know what, fuck it, yep, I'm going. And I went, and even though there was like a hint of drama because it's a group trip, so there's always something, get that many people together, bound to have something happen, but so fucking worth it. Like, not only does it always feel good to like support a friend and go and celebrate them and just help them have like the best time ever, but it felt good to be like, I don't have to be scared to go on a trip with people I don't know. You make friends. Like, whether it feels intimidating, whether it feels scary, you always end up making friends. People, especially when they're friends of a friend that you know is a very approachable person, they're very approachable. And I feel like I made friends that weekend, and it was such just a fun, carefree vibe, and I got to explore a different part of Mexico that I hadn't been a part of, and I got to feel like, okay, Mexico's not this part on like, not part, but like it's not this big X on my list, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to be like, oh, the last time I was in Mexico was with my ex and it wasn't a good time. Now I get to be like, it was the best fucking birthday trip for my girl, and like we had so much fun. Like, I'll never forget dancing at a beach club and having our little table and like having endless margaritas and just acting as if I've never been happier to just be outside in my life and just embrace it, embrace the changes, embrace like who you're with, embrace everything, because it's so much fucking fun when you do. And so that is like a big reason that I say take the trip. You won't regret it, because I did not regret it. And then it felt like because I said yes to it, the universe was all like, all right, see, she is like actually keeping to her word. She wanted to go and travel. All right, let's give her more opportunities. And I shit you not, after this trip of I'm like, I'm gonna be responsible, maybe I shouldn't. Boom, I'm texting another friend of mine who doesn't live in the same area, but I was randomly like, oh my God, we haven't talked, like I miss her. And I'll never forget, I was out on my balcony reading a book, and I was just like, I just feel like I should text her right now. Like, I miss her. So I did. I texted her that I missed her and asked her how she was doing. And the next thing you know, she's like, wait, I'm going to Portugal with a mutual friend of ours. Like, do you want to come? And this was they were going at the same time I was on a work trip, but they were going to still be on the trip when I was done with my work portion. And I was like, you know what? Absolutely. Because in my mind, take the trip. Take the trip. And this was another soul trip. And I got lucky that it worked out that I was able to change my flights through work and be able to extend my trip and stay, and the fact that like the hotel accommodations and everything. And this was like a month out. Like we're talking, there was not much time to shift things and all of that and get all this like planned and together, and we made it happen. And this, like, the energy from the second I started my work trip was like cloud 9. And I think it's because I knew that I had this trip like in the back of my mind. And then the second I got on the 6 a.m. flight to start my journey to Portugal, because I had to take 2 flights to get to Madeira, which, oh my God, if you haven't been to Madeira, please go. It's amazing. Couldn't say better things about it at the time of my life there. So I board this flight. It's like at the crack of dawn, and like anything else at the crack of dawn sucks, but the crack of dawn for traveling, best thing. I'm ready to go. I'm like, yes, let's get this started. Energy's already high. Unless you're going home from a trip, in which case a 6 a.m. flight on your way home, energy's pretty low because you're sad you're going home. So I don't even know how to express that, like, everything lined up. Like, I still managed to carry on for two and a half weeks. Still managed it. That was stressful, but I had all the best outfits. Like, I was feeling myself. My friends are amazing, and it was just so nice to catch up and see them. Everything we did, the food, the atmospheres, the people we came across, everything we did was absolutely spectacular, to the point where you know you're having a good time when you are absolutely exhausted. Like, coming from a work trip where you're doing like a trade show, you know that like you're pulling basically 18-hour days, because you're waking up, you're immediately getting into it, trade show all day, going into networking receptions, going into dinners that you're having with clients, customers, whatever, and then going to the after parties that eventually like you have to go to, and then going to sleep and waking up and doing it all over again. So I'm exhausted, and we are waking up to start a hike that's famous in Madeira. I don't remember what it's called, so go Google it, look it up, you'll find it. We were waking up at 5 a.m. after going to bed at probably midnight after dinner, and I was like ready to go. That's when you know that like everything is amazing, because you don't care what time it is, you don't care how tired you are, nothing matters. You're having the time of your life. And I still say that after a 7-hour Stairmaster hike that we went on, I was like on cloud 9. I had all the energy in the world, even though I'm sure my body physically was like, girl, let's go to sleep. But these are like what I call soul trips. Like, that nourished my soul in a way that like I'll never forget that trip for the rest of my life. I don't think I'll forget pretty much any of the trips that I went on last year, because they all meant so much to me. And that's why my perspective has kind of changed. Like, in the past, it's like, okay, you know, plan out in advance, go on the trip if you want to. Like, I love travel, and so like I love to have at least like 2-3 trips to look forward to during the year, however they come up. But like, when the opportunity presents itself, whether your friends are inviting you on a trip, whether it's that trip that you've always wanted to go on and like your friends are down for the ride, go. If it's the solo trip that you've been dreaming of, go. You will never regret it, because not only are you gonna have a good time, you explore so much about yourself. Like, you learn how independent you could be. You learn that you can navigate in countries where you don't even know the language. You learn that people are friendly everywhere you go. And of course, I mean, I mentioned Paris earlier. Not everyone has a good experience with Paris. I've never had a bad experience, so I can't speak to that. But the people that you meet end up like making your trip. And even when I was in Portugal, after my friends left, I tacked on a few extra solo days because I'd never been to Porto. I wanted to go. They had done it during the portion of their trip where I was working. So I went there, and I went on this wine like bus that goes out to Porto, and you go and visit a few of the wineries. And wouldn't you know, the girl that sits down next to me, she's from Australia. She's traveling alone. We end up taking each other's pictures, talking throughout the day. Like, it was as if we were traveling together. So you always find people. And I think it's so fun to get to know new cultures, new people, make new friends. You never know what's going to happen, who you're going to meet, and how that's going to change you. And I feel like every time I go on a trip, it opens up my mind to new things, and I take those things with me, and I feel like I've learned about them, I've learned about me, and I feel even more confident to take on anything that's in my life. I feel as if I dream bigger dreams. I feel as if I am reignited to like just love life again. And it really is like, I know there was a TikTok trend like, oh, you know, corporate America, like I'm supposed to be on LinkedIn, or like I'm supposed to be working a 9 to 5, but the world looks like this. Every time you go on a trip, that's how you feel. Like, you look around at the beauty that is around the world that you've never seen before, and you're like, you know what? I need more of this. I want more of this. I want to explore more of the world, and in turn explore more of me. And I think because you're exploring others and exploring more of yourself, like how you travel, what you like to do, and solo trips are so amazing because you get to do exactly what the fuck you want to do. You don't have to wait for anybody else. You don't have to cater to anybody else's needs. You don't have to sacrifice the restaurant you really want to go to because your friend prefers a different one and you're making compromises. You don't have to do that. You get to do whatever you want. Like, I really love crystals. I spent 3 hours in a crystal shop in Porto because I wanted to. So you figure out, especially through solo travel, what you like to do, what a good time means to you, and you figure out how you like to live. And then you get to take that home and try to incorporate that into your day-to-day life. And I think that's magical. I think travel is magical. I think everything about it, even the stressful parts, end up being a funny story that you laugh about with your friends later about, like, you know, I'll still never forget a time when I was studying abroad. I forgot my passport when we were taking the train from London to Paris, and like, oh my God, what a stressful moment it was. But it's funny now because, come on, like, of course you need your passport. You're going to a different country. But it's just everything about traveling, not just the good, but the moments that can be a little stressful are like learning moments. And the more you learn in a like have to get it done environment, the more that you know that you're capable of doing it, and the more that you know that you want to like take those skills with you. Or like maybe you just like meet people who are like the best fucking people you've ever met, and you're like, I want to take that vibe home with me. I want to like duplicate that somehow. Like, I find myself, a part of Europe that I love is like their little outdoor patios, and like I was just in Austria in January and people are still out in the little patios having drinks, and I'm like, it's freezing. I can't go to that extreme. Maybe if I was like bundled up in like a Canada Goose, I don't know. I hear those are really warm. Maybe I just don't have the right jacket. But like I love that environment of just like feeling like you're outside, the sun is shining on you, the social nature of people walk by, you might strike up conversation, or people next to you might strike up conversation, or maybe you're just out there having a glass of wine and like reading a really good book. But it's such a, to me, it feels so European, because even though we have spaces like that in the US, they're not as like, there's not as many, at least in the DC area. I think New York is pretty good about that, but not a lot of cities around here are very good about that. And I'm hoping they get better, because I try to duplicate it when I'm home. I'm like, okay, what places are like rooftops or like outdoor space, so I can like replicate that and get like a croissant and a glass of wine and just like unwind. But that's the beautiful thing, is like whatever you find that you love while you travel, especially pieces of you that you find that you love, you get to take that home with you. And then you get excited to do that again and again and again. So my advice will always be, take the trip. I really don't think you'll ever regret it, because it's going to be a great experience. And you deserve a great fucking experience, and you deserve to love life. So go on that trip and remember why the fuck you love life and love yourself to begin with, and then take that shit home with you and make sure you implement it in your daily life. All right, guys, with that, say it with me. I'm a fucking baddie. All right, this has been a long episode, but thanks for hanging in with me. Love y'all till next time.